All right. Here we go. Here we are in part two of sectionalism. Those things that lead up to the big war, the Civil War. All right. So part two, we're going to end with another person, or excuse me, we're going to begin with another person, which is going to end what we looked at yesterday. But let's go through this real fast and check out what we did, or what we looked about, or we looked at. So we found out that our country is divided into three different regions: the North, the South, and the West. All right. These people called the abolitionists. They want to abolish slavery, and most of them are in the North. Not all of them, but most of them want to do that. All right. There were arguments that the South had to keep slaves, and we'll get to that in a second. First person that was an abolitionist that we looked at, his name was William Lloyd Garrison, who created a newspaper called The Liberator. And the Grimke sisters, one of the sisters, I believe it was Angelina, maybe Sarah, I think it was Angelina, wrote an article that ended up in the newspaper, The Liberator, and that made the Grimke sisters famous as they lectured around the North about the evils of slavery. And then there was also Frederick Douglass, who was an escaped slave himself, who gave lots of speeches around the country trying to get rid of slavery. And there we go. So the issue was slavery at this time that we're talking about. This is one of the issues that's going to lead us to the Civil War. It is not the only issue. There will be these others that we're going to talk about today. Oh, I don't like what this is going on here. Let's see here. It's all right. And they'll leave it about right there. The South believed that it had a very sophisticated culture and economy down here in the plantation system that was going on, and that they believed that the slaves were better off being in the South. All right. So they had to come up with a compromise as new states came into the Union, or came into the country. This is what America calls their country, of the Union. One of the first one will be the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Now, we're 41 years before the Civil War is actually going to happen. It doesn't start until 1861. So we're long. This is going to take a long, long time, decades, all right, before the war is actually going to happen. So Missouri will become a state, but it allows slavery. But there had to be a compromise, and the compromise was to bring in, here you go, Maine as a free state, and that kept the balance for a while until the next states start to come in. All right. So that basically brings us to the next person and last person. I kind of wish I would have gone over it just the other day, but this guy's name is his story is pretty awesome. Movies are made about this guy. His name is Nat Turner. All right. And Turner's Rebellion. So here we go. Get your pencil ready. Let's get into this. It's going to be good. Let's learn about Nat Turner and other reasons why the Civil War will start. So African American preacher. His name is Nat Turner. That's right. Nat Turner believed his mission on earth was to free his people from slavery. That's right. Check it out. He saw, in 1831, he saw a solar, can you guess what it is? It's up in the sky. A solar eclipse as a sign or a message from God above. He leads a slave rebellion in Virginia. All right. And I believe it was, how many different places was it? It was 4 different Virginia plantations. All right, plantations. About 60, check it out, whites were killed. And Turner was captured, tried, and then, because of this massacre that he had, he was executed. That's right. I can't spell. Executed. He was executed. He was probably hung by his neck until he was dead. All right. Now, this freaked everybody out. So to stop such uprisings, white leaders passed new laws to limit the activities of slaves and to strengthen the institution of slavery. All right. All right. Now, that kind of ends the individuals that you need to know. There's another one that would be fun to know. His name is John Brown. And he killed a lot of folks trying to end slavery. All right, let's go into our next topic here. And really, this is where part two will stop, or start. So here we go into the next big one. So the next big topic, and many would argue that this is the biggest topic. It's called the nullification crisis. That's right, nullification crisis. Well, I'll tell you what, before we get into that, let me show you. Here's some pictures of John Brown and some political cartoons. Horrid massacre in Virginia. Yeah, he went around with the swords and shooting people and all, but that's, yeah, so not John Brown. This is Nat Turner. Nat Turner. Finding the bones of Nat Turner. Oh, that's kind of wild. That might be worth reading. National Geographic. Okay, well, look at this one. This one's kind of wild too. Look at that. The slaves rebelling against the masters. All right, very good. Now, let's get out of that and go back to part two, or should possibly be part one of the reasons why we go into the Civil War, the nullification crisis. So, all right, let me introduce you to a new guy. His name, he is the Vice President of the United States, John C. Calhoun. Important person. There's actually some colleges named after him. Okay, he argued with President Andrew, y'all tell me who it is, Andrew Jackson, about the rights of states to, all right, it's in the root word of this right here, to nullify or cancel federal laws they opposed. All right, trouble, known as the nullification crisis, resulted. Okay, now so let's pause. Make sure you get this. So the states in the South want to nullify or cancel laws that they don't like. Think about that. Can states overrule federal laws? That's what they're arguing. All right. There's parts in the Constitution that say that they can, if they can do certain things. So let's find out. All right. So it results. All right. So trouble. Oh my goodness. Let's go. Here we go. All right. Trouble, known as the nullification crisis, resulted when Southern states sought to, what are they trying to do now? Nullify or cancel a high, I put there in the brackets tax, but it was a tariff. Congress had passed on manufactured goods imported from Europe. This tariff or tax helped northern manufacturers, but hurt southern plantation owners. There you go. All right. So legislatures, those are people that are going to make the laws, they're in Congress, nullified the tariff in a state in South Carolina. So the tariff's still there, but only one state nullified it. All right. So here we go. Check it out. Calhoun, the Vice President of the United States, he's from South Carolina. He's a South Carolinian. All right. Guess what? Look what he does. He resigns from the vice presidency. He quits the job. All right. To lead the efforts of the southern states. So he's going down there and helping the South. He doesn't think that that they should be able to stop the South. So he leads the efforts of the southern states in this. We call it the nullification crisis. His loyalty to the interests of the southern region or section of the United States, not to the United States as a whole, contributed to the rise of, remember we're talking about our big topic, more dividing in our country, the rise of sectionalism. That's right. So Calhoun and the advocates of sectionalism argued in favor of, check it out, states' rights. All right, I'm put this in quotes and everything like that. So this is going to be the big topic that a lot of people would say is the number one reason that we would go into the Civil War, not the issue with slavery. They go together. You can't have one without the other. But this is really what a lot of would say it's all about: states' rights to be able to do what they want. All right. The idea that states have certain rights and political powers states' rights and political powers separate from those held by the federal government. Okay. That the federal government may not violate. The supporters of sectionalism were mostly Southerners. Their opponents, I'm starting to get a little off here. Their opponents, oh, here we go. That's right. Were afraid, check it out, that if each state could decide for itself which federal laws to obey, the United States would, what would it do? It would simply just dissolve into something else. I don't think it would go away, but it would be more like what life was like under the Articles of Confederation. The United States would dissolve into sectional discord or even warfare. All right, so states' rights became a big issue during the nullification crisis. All right. That takes us to this. There's Turner's Rebellion. This gives you a really good idea. What's more important, states' rights or federal rights? We have this nullification crisis. I don't understand this political cartoon. Look at it for a second. There was one over here that was pretty good. Let's see this one here. This king stuff. Maybe, I don't know about that one either. But this one makes sense here. Yeah, check it out. Check it out. So it is, just should the states have to bow down to the federal government and let them do whatever they want? I don't know. Here's the nullification crisis, the big fight. That's right. Jackson and Calhoun fighting each other. This would be Calhoun. This would be Jackson. Jackson wants a big, strong federal government. Calhoun wants the states to be able to do what they want, especially when it comes to money and all that. All right, that's a good one right there to stop on right there. Check it out. All right. Let's get into our next topic. All right, here we go. I think you can figure this one out. The Mexican-American, all right, war. So now we're getting closer to the Civil War. So the year is 1845. The United States took, check it out, that big giant state, Texas, into the Union and set its sights on Mexican territories of New Mexico and California. That's right, California. So, U.S., there's a new word for you right here, annexation make sure I spelled that right. Annexation of Texas and other factors led to war in 1846. All right. During the conflict, the United States occupied much of northern Mexico. When the United States eventually they won the war, this region was ceded or given, just write the word ceded, to the United States as part of this ends the war, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. That's right. So, Mexican-American War, we're fighting the Mexican-American War, and we end up with Texas, we end up with New Mexico, we end up with California. The treaty ends right there, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Watch a movie called Hidalgo. It's really good. All right. And now we have a problem because of this. We got this new land. What's the problem? What do they become? Are they becoming states? So now this takes us to this right here. It's called the Wilmot Proviso. So during the Mexican-American War, Congress again debated whether slavery would be allowed in New Mexico and California. Are they going to allow slaves there if these territories were acquired from Mexico? Well, we have them now. So the anti-slavery position was outlined in a proposal called the Wilmot Proviso, but the House of Representatives failed to approve it. And the issue of whether to allow or prohibit slavery in the new states remained, nice word right here, when something's not finished, it is unresolved. So the issue is unresolved. They didn't know what to do. So that takes us to how that actually happens. All right, what actually did happen? So we have, and that was called the Compromise of 1850. Now look at these dates. They're very important. We're getting closer and closer to war. In 11 years, we'll be in the Civil War. All right, so during the 1840s, many members of, what's the group that makes laws? Congress, many members of Congress became increasingly concerned that the issue of slavery, especially its extension to the new states, threatened the survival of the country. Those who favored slavery and those who opposed slavery therefore agreed to 5 laws that addressed these concerns. So check this out. Collectively, the 5 laws are known as the Compromise of 1850. So the compromise stated this. So the New Mexico would be established by carving its borders from the state of Texas. Easy peasy. New Mexico voters, check it out, would determine whether the state would permit or prohibit the practice of slavery. So they got to vote in Mexico. Are they going to have, or in New Mexico, if they're going to have slaves or not? California, would it be admitted to the Union as a, California did not have a choice. They're just going to be a free state. All right, and then check this one out. All citizens, this is a requirement, would be required to apprehend, that means to catch, runaway slaves. This is all citizens everywhere, and return them to their owners. Those who failed to do so would be fined or imprisoned. The slave trade, almost done, would be abolished in the District of Columbia. But be abolished in the District of Columbia. Well, all right, there we go. But the practice of slavery would be allowed to continue there. So no more new slaves, but they can keep the ones they already got. Many Northerners and Southerners welcomed the passage of the Compromise. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Compromise of 1850. They kind of settled the issue for a while. So they're not actually going to be continuing the fight. My microphone fell over. Sorry about that. That was probably pretty loud. All right. So the Northerners and Southerners were happy with this, all right, of the Compromise of 1850 and hoped that it would preserve the country or the Union. Their hopes were dashed. But about a decade later, when the United States became engaged in a devastating civil war, and that is our next big topic. That is right. So let's get in here, check this out real quick. So we're looking at the Mexican-American War here. They show the Mexicans and Americans fighting each other over land. The Mexicans lost, so they lost some land. They had to give it to us. They're still upset about it today. They really are. They want it back. They want California back, and it's not going to happen. All right. And then it takes us to the Compromise of 1850, which will be the last thing we'll look at as a reason for the Civil War to happen. Here's the New Mexico Territory, California. All right. Anyways, questions, comments, or remarks. Let's show us one more thing here. And let's just see what you know. See what you can remember here. See what this looks like. Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. So what is an abolitionist? You can holler out the answer. Come on. Oh, what do they want to do? That's right. One that wants to end slavery. Who was that? He wrote a newspaper called The Liberator. Who was that? William Lloyd Garrison. What free black abolitionist wrote The North Star? That's the name of his. I didn't say it earlier. His name is Frederick Douglass with a cool hairdo. Who are those pretty ladies? What abolitionist sisters moved to the North to speak out against the plantation system? That is the Grimke sisters. Ooh, look at that picture. So what slave thought God wanted him to stop slavery by killing? That is just horrible. Look at that. Nat Turner, Turner's Rebellion. The Missouri Compromise made Missouri a slave state, and what other state became free? It's right there in the red. So that was slave state, free state. It's Maine. So the nullification crisis was an issue dealing with what? What right? Who wanted their rights? States' rights. So why did the nullification crisis happen? Because of a tax or a tariff on European goods made products more expensive for the South. And who was that with the wild hair? The vice president who will go and lead the South or South Carolina during the nullification crisis. That's John C. Calhoun. That man's got some hair. Yes, he does. So what land did we get after the war with Mexico? We ended up with the Southwest. That's New Mexico, Arizona, California. After the war with Mexico, what did the Wilmot Proviso do? Wanted all land gained to be free. So the Wilmot Proviso did not pass. But what did pass was the Compromise of 1850, leading to these things right here. The Fugitive Slave Act. You better catch them. California's free, made New Mexico. New Mexico voted on slavery. DC ended. Yes. So before the Civil War, the U.S. developed into 3 different regions. What were they? There they are. This is sectionalism. There's the 3 parts. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for paying attention. Hope you're learning something. We will come back together and we will look at the Civil War. Very good. Let's have fun.